Hello, my beautiful ones, and welcome to a live masterclass. Oh my gosh, it has been a minute since I've done one of these, so I'm super excited to share this 5-minute path to peace. Um, so interesting story. I had a long time client reach out to me recently, and she was like, oh, I'm right in the middle of this upset. What do I do? And so we worked through it. We took a look at what was going on for her, and I came up with this, this quick release of the upset. And we worked out what was behind all of that. And from that, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to share this. So you get the benefit of her recognition that she didn't want to be in the emotional state that she was in. So I figured probably lots of us could use that little tidbit of information and help. So, what do you do when you are in an upset? Well, what we're going to do first is talk about why you're in the upset in the first place. And then we're going to talk about how you recognize that you're in it and then the steps and what you do. And I'm going to be going through this whole training we're going to be doing some energy moving. We're going to be doing some recognizing, some centering, some releasing. And I'm going to teach you all how to do that. If you are here, go ahead and say hello. Pop your name and where you're located in the comments. I'm not seeing any of the comments right now. So if you're here, just go ahead and pop your name in the comments and say hello, and I will, hopefully this thing will, fix itself and I'll be able to see your comments. Okay. So to get to the 5-minute path of peace, we need to have a little discussion about why these upsets happen. And there are a couple different categories that I want to cover. One of them is the emotions that happen when we are upset. Like what the real emotions are. I mean, you may be feeling angry, um, or you may be crying, there may be an outward expression, but that's not really the underlying emotions connected to what the upsets are. So, what we're going to do first is talk about those emotions. We're also going to talk about the possible triggers that may be causing the upsets in the first place. And there are a surprising number of triggers that we can have. It's not all trauma. So I'm going to go through some of these. If you have ideas on your own that I haven't covered, please pop those into the comments so that I can see those. Okay. So the emotions connected to when we're having an anger outburst or we're overreacting in some way. Some people burst into tears, some people yell, some people throw stuff, some people run away. That's, yeah, that's one. There are lots of ways that we can have an overreaction to, to some kind of a trigger. So the emotions that I've identified, and I was really reaching into this and feeling like, are there other ones besides these? And I really couldn't come up with other ones. I came up with 3 main emotions that accompany major overreactions or major emotional responses. So one of them is that you feel powerless, completely powerless. Another one is that you may feel trapped. It's like that caged animal thing. And then And the third one that I came up with was fear. So that sense of powerlessness, the sense of being trapped, and the sense of fear. If there's another emotion that you can think of, please type that into the comments. The triggers that I came up with, and some of these overlap a little bit with the emotions, but the triggers are usually connected to a specific event um, or ongoing condition. So obviously, trauma is sorry. Obviously, trauma is a major trigger for emotional outbursts. But have you thought about things like pain? Pain, especially if it's chronic pain, just wears away at your ability to manage your own emotional state, and something can trigger a reaction that really is based in how, not being able to manage pain, having excessive pain. So, pain is one. Adrenal fatigue. That's an actual physical problem when your adrenal glands are so fatigued that you don't have resources anymore, and your adrenaline is just like running either on high or is unavailable. That can cause a very strong reaction that is not your fault. Not your fault. It's totally physical. Another one is grief, and I put grief in the category of triggers rather than in the category of emotions, because grief is usually based in something specific, some specific event. Um, Somebody passed away, or there was some other kind of loss in your life. And then another one is stress. I mean, lots of people talk about stress, but that stuff really is very taxing on your emotional state and on your ability to manage your emotions. So, stress is a big one. Also, exhaustion. And I didn't put that on the side of emotions because exhaustion can be really physical, especially if it's emotional exhaustion. It can take a physical toll. And then, if something happens that triggers you, then you can just fall apart. Another one is blame. Blame is a big one. If you feel blamed by somebody else, then there's this um, need to protect yourself, and that can come out as a very strong emotional outburst or angry, you know, reaction. The other one that I wrote down, there are a couple of others. One of them is hormones. Um, you know, for women, we really get that. Hormones do create big emotional outbursts, and you know what? That's beyond our control, really. Um, One of the things that I love the most about having gone through menopause is that don't, I'm not a slave to those hormones anymore. It's really quite nice. Um, Another one is anxiety. When you have anxiety, when you're in like a super anxious place, any tiny little tap or poke or prick or, word can just boom, set you over the edge to the point where you're not able to control what's going on, what's coming out. So, those are some of the reasons why we get into these over emotional outbursts. And and I really wanted to talk about this because one of the biggest problems with being called over emotional or having angry outbursts and is that guilt or that sense of I'm bad, I'm wrong, or it's the self blame. And so, a big piece of this work that we're going to be doing today is around self forgiveness. Yeah. Even if there's some kind of, reason, if it's somebody else's fault that really put us into this outburst, there's always that element of like, oh boy, but I shouldn't have, um, you know. Or if you're on the other side of it and you're like totally justifying, you're like, well, they deserved it, then there's a little bit of a problem there about owning your own piece of it. So we're going to be covering that as well. And that's kind of a tough conversation sometimes. But we're going to be covering that definitely. So the one major identifiable reason for any upset, any upset, and I've tested this for, it's probably been like close to 20 years that I've been testing out this, this theory. I call it a theory because it's a work in progress. I could still be proved wrong, and you may be able to convince me that I'm wrong. But I've been testing this out on myself for probably about 20 years. And the number one identifiable reason for every upset that I've ever had is that there is some kind of an unmet expectation underneath that. There's some way in which I had an expectation of somebody else or of some, other entity, an entity or somebody, and that expectation has not been met. And guess who that's on? Me. That's on me. If I have an expectation, then I need to recognize what that is and own that. And it may be a totally unreasonable expectation, given the circumstances, given the humans involved, So that can also point to some of the underlying reasons even underneath the unmet expectation. So sometimes, because of trauma or because of pain or because of, whatever it is, we have an expectation. Say you're in chronic pain, you have the expectation that everybody's going to leave you the heck alone because you are not responsible for how you react. Is that a reasonable expectation to have? Honestly, probably not. Mm-hmm. Even though you're in pain, other people might not know that, So having that as an expectation is probably not realistic in order to keep you out of overreaction and upset. So yeah, that's what I mean when I talk about unmet expectations. When you can find out what those expectations are that you are holding yourself, then you can take personal responsibility for the part that's yours. And then that's where self-forgiveness comes in, because once you can identify the part that you need to own, you can forgive yourself for that, and then the 5-minute pathway to peace will be a lot easier to achieve. So that's why we're talking about these things. Okay, so the other thing that I want to talk about is that when we lash out with a strong reaction, there's almost always some blame fanning the flames of that upset. So, sometimes people are like, oh, I always just self-blame. But I would challenge you to really look at the possibility that you're also placing blame on another person or entity. Yeah. So identifying your own part isn't about self-blame. It's really about just owning where, what you can own. Owning what you can own, because if you're owning your part, then that means that you're in control. Whenever we blame, we put all of the control onto the person that we are blaming. It's their fault that XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And so, when we place that blame and we give them all the control, if only they hadn't done XYZ, then I wouldn't be upset. that gives us zero control over our emotions. Zero. And that's not right. That's not right. So, taking our own personal responsibility isn't about self blame, even though it can turn into that. It's not about self blame, it's about recognizing the part that we have control over and taking back that control. So, it's a big part of this 5 minute path to peace. We're going to get into the energy work too, but wrapping your head around the, the technicalities of it is really important. Okay, the other thing is that when we identify our own part and take responsibility for our own part, that process can be kind of hard. That hard look in the mirror. But it's also really freeing because then that means that all of the control is back in your court. You get to choose how to how to manage that part that you're reclaiming. Okay, so any questions so far? Still, this live video thing is being weird. I don't see where there are any comments. And I don't even know if I'm recording, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so if I can't see any of your comments, I will definitely look at them at the end of this masterclass and answer you in the comments section because I really want that interaction. I love the interaction piece. And as always, I love questions. So at the end of the masterclass, please chime in with your questions. All right, so let's get started with this 5 minute path to peace. I'm really excited to share this with you. And then after this process, I really want you to stick around because I have a super, super special offer to give you that I'm really excited about, but it's super limited. It ends at the end, 9 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. So a very, very short window of opportunity. I'm going to stand up so that you can see where I'm putting my hands and follow along with me in this process, the 5 minute path to peace process. Okay. So the first thing that you want to do when in this process is to recognize that you're in an out of control emotional upset situation. And sometimes that is the hardest part of this whole thing, is recognizing when you're in one of those downward spirals and you're about to crash and burn and the emotions are flying and you have no control over what's going on. So when you recognize that, even if it's after the fact, you can still do this. Even if it's after the fact, you've had an interaction, you walk away or something changes, and then all of a sudden you're able to think about it and you're like, oh man, I didn't catch it in time. It's okay. You still have time to do this 5 minute path to peace. So recognizing that you've had an out of control, emotional, upsetting interaction. And then if you can recognize it in the moment while it's happening, remove yourself. That's, you can say something like, ooh, I need a timeout, just a moment, and remove yourself. And then you can come back after you've done your little 5 minutes. You can even tell the person, hey, I need 5 minutes. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I just need to take a quick little break here. So that way the person's not left just totally hanging, being like, what the heck? And you've given it a little bit of a time frame so that they have an expectation of when you're going to come back to the conversation and back to the situation. If you're on a phone call, you can just say, hey, can I call you back in 5 minutes? And then that gives you a time frame, it gives you a moment to breathe and to reset your energy, and it gives them a minute too, because they might need a minute too. All right, so recognize that you're in the upset, remove yourself if you can. Sometimes you can't remove yourself. And so the 5 minute path to peace may just need to happen after whatever upset interaction is going on. Um, but you can use as much of this process as possible while you're in it. That is also possible. Okay, so recognizing, and then the next thing that you're going to do is use your hands, because our hands have natural healing abilities right here in our palm chakras. We all have it. We all have palm chakras. We all have chakras in the soles of our feet that connect us into earth. We all have chakras in the palms of our hands that help us with healing. That's why, if you're injured, the first thing you do is like, oh, you grab it. And that's because you have natural healing abilities right here. So we're going to activate that and activate your conscious choosing of how you're connecting with your energy. So I'm going to tip the screen down so you can see where I'm going to put my hands. And I'm going to put my hands, this is my belly button right here. I'm going to put my hands just below my belly button, kind of like this. Another way that you can do it is you can make a heart like this so that the heart is just below your belly button right there. And this is your chi center. And if you imagine between your spine and your belly, between your back and your belly, on the inside of your spine. So that's where the center of your body is. And that's why it's called centering. Right? Yes. So you're going to be directing your energy, and you're going to be using intention. And when you do it physically with your hands, it helps center your mind as well as your energy. So what you're doing is you're asking yourself to focus on something other than all of the upset that's taking place in your brain. You're bringing your attention and your energy into the very center of your body. So start to feel your hands getting warm, your belly getting warm. You may feel a little tingling as you focus your energy through your palms and towards the inside of your spine, right there at the very center of your body. And now you may still be feeling like, like a lot of upset. It might just, your brain, like all the thinking is like this in your head. So that's the next thing that you want to do is, instead of like hyperventilating, we're going to just take a deep breath in and exhale. And sometimes I actually like, you let your breath out and you let your vocal cords kind of flutter like, and then that's a little bit funny too. So you can laugh at yourself. So you want to center, you want to exhale, and then you want to recognize all of the like gobbledygook that's going on in your brain and ask it to slide down and down and down, and all of that gobbledygook energy, because that's all it is, it's energy. Let it slide down to your center. Bring it out of your brain and down into your center. And I call that lowering your center of gravity, because you've got like all this energy up here, and that's like a really high center of gravity. And it creates a lot of like, up here. So you're wanting to identify that, like feel what it feels like, see what it looks like imagine, what does that look like? It just looks like, those cartoons where the cat and the mouse are going like this, and all you see is dust and stars and stuff like that. That's what's going on in your brain when you're upset, right? So just imagine whatever that looks like, if it's yellow or, red, or, imagine that there's a color, imagine that there's some kind of thing. And if you can make it funny, oh my gosh, it's so much better. It just really helps. It helps to change everything. So imagine that that's just sliding down your central energy channel that runs from your crown to your root. It's sliding down the inside of your body, the inside of your spine, and it keeps on sliding down. And as it slides down, it grabs onto all the other places where the upset is happening. Your lungs, your heart racing, your hyperventilating, your lungs and your heart, or you're crying, whatever is going on. Allow that jumble to collect all of that ucky energy and bring it right down into your center. And that's where you can activate that healing set energy right here in your palms and just give it love. Just give it love. Just give it love. You know, that's what happens when a child is upset. You comfort them, you hug them, you rock them, you say, "Oh, poor baby. I'm so sorry you're upset. That's very sad. Poor baby." This is what you're doing for yourself. You're saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm really upset." And you're bringing it all down and you're putting your hands there and you're saying, "Oh, poor baby. Poor baby." You're not saying poor baby to yourself. You're saying poor baby to all that upset. Yes. Then it takes all the stuff where you try and push it away out of the way, because as endless givers, we have a really hard time receiving. So if you say, "Oh, poor baby" to the stuff, it's way easier than saying, "Oh, poor baby" to yourself. You say, "Oh, poor baby" to yourself, you're like, "Nah, I don't deserve that." But if you say, "Oh, poor baby" to all the upset, that's more believable. So we're just starting with the stuff that's the most believable, okay? Oh, poor baby. Lower your center of gravity. And then what we're going to do is something super magical. We're going to ask that the bottom of your central energy channel, which is located at your root chakra, become warm and soft and then open. And as your root chakra opens, you can imagine that this gorgeous tube of light is extending from the bottom of your root all the way down. You can include your legs if you want to. Make that a big energy tube that connects you right down into the very center of the earth, right down into earth. Just feel that earth connection. Feel it with your feet. Feel it with your root chakra, softening, warming, softening, and opening. And then ask that big jumble that you've just said, "Oh, poor baby" to. That's a big load of crap I don't want to carry around with me. I'm so glad that's out of my head now. And we're going to dump that right down that grounding tube. So ready? The first part is recognize and remove yourself. The second part is to center. Use your hands. Do the little heart shape or just put them on top of each other, whatever's easiest. Right below your belly button. Feel that center right there in the very center of your body. And then exhale. Exhale with that throat flutter, vocal cord flutter. And then recognize that jumble here in your head. Lower that center of gravity. Oh, poor baby. Just give it a little love. And then release. And the way that you release is you talk to your root chakra. You ask it to get warm first. If you're in an upset situation, opening your root chakra, that's hard. That's hard. It's really hard. All this stuff is really hard when you're really upset. So you kind of have to trick yourself. If you ask your root chakra to get warm and soft, those are really relaxing things. You're not commanding it to open. Your root chakra's like, "Screw you, I'm not going to open." But if you ask your root chakra to get warm, you're giving it love. You're giving it permission to be warm. You're giving your root chakra permission to be soft. And then it's much easier to ask it to open. And as soon as it opens, all that jumbled up mess it just wants to leave you. Nobody wants to hang on to that crap. If you do find yourself wanting to hang on to that crap, it's because there's a lot of blame behind it. And you're still giving all of your power away to whoever it is that you're in the upset situation with. So check yourself on that one. Okay, so after you have released, the next part is neutral breathing, because, your heart may still be totally racing. Your lungs may still be hyperventilating. You may still have a little bit of like gobbledygook in there that's not quite all out. So if you practice breathing neutrally, like, there's upset and there's joy, but what's in the center is neutral. And when you are in a neutral space, you have total control and total choice of how you react and interact. So, what we're going to be doing is focusing on what it feels like to be neutral. And this is not the same thing as dissociation, not at all. We're not removing ourselves from the situation, we're not removing ourselves from feeling any emotions. What we're doing is we're finding that space of neutral, balanced, personal self, neutral, where everything is in a state of possibility and all of your energy is available for you, just waiting for you to choose. That's what being neutral truly is. It's gathering up all of the potential, all of the possibility, and all of the access to your energy, your thoughts, your feelings, your energy, your connection, your intuitive alignment, all of that. So when you're neutral, it's all gathered around you. You're not taking action yet. That's what neutral is. It's an absence of action. And it's just ready for your action. So we're going to do some neutral breathing. You can have your hands still at your chi center, or you can have one at your heart and one at your chi center. I really love that hold for myself. It helps me feel safe. Helps me feel safe. So I can breathe in through my heart, allow that energy to slide down to my center, and you can even have it exit out of your center. So you can have it enter into your heart, exit out of your center, and then you can reverse that polarity. You can breathe into your center and let it release out of your heart. And that way, if you're holding anything in your body, you can allow it to refresh and release. So when you get to enough breaths where you're feeling like, okay, now I'm in a calm, clear, neutral space where I'm not supercharged and I'm not ready to go in guns blazing, I'm just in control and I get to choose how to use my words, what words to use, and how to express myself calmly. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do after that, once you're in that kind of neutral space, then you are able to really identify that unmet expectation, because before then you're still so upset. How could you ever get to a place where you could identify that unmet expectation? So now it's the time to really take a look at the upset from a different perspective. Instead of being in it, now you have this, external perspective, and you can take a look at what your expectation was that you can own. So, for an example, um, I'll just use an example. Someone was talking about how they were really upset because the person that they were talking to was dismissive, felt the way their tone or whatever was dismissive, and because this person was asking, "Did you do this? Did you do that? How did that work out?" And the person was, "Well, I did everything that I could, uh, um, and I tried my best." And so there's oftentimes when there's an upset, there's Upset on one side, upset on the other side. And you're only in control of your part. And each person has the opportunity to be upset. Each person has a right to be upset. You have a right to be upset. What we're doing here is checking into what the reasons of that upset are and allowing it to release so that you can come with a fresh perspective. Okay, so identifying what your expectation is, and then next, forgiving yourself because oh my gosh, we all have expectations all the time. Where it gets tricky is when you apply those expectations to people that don't understand that those are your expectations. Yeah, yeah. Even if you think that they should know, they should understand. Um, so, then there's the piece of like total self-forgiveness where you're like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I did the best I could with what I had in that moment. And next time I'll probably do better, but I'm okay right now. What a relief. Whoosh. Oh my gosh. Then you can go back after your 5 minutes are up and they're expecting you to re-enter the conversation because you said I'll be back in 5 minutes. You can come back and be like, okay, whew, let's try again. I was having a little moment there and I needed to regroup. And then you can ask questions. That's one of my favorite ways to enter into difficult conversations. Instead of making assumptions, instead of thinking that you know what the other person meant or what, any of that, you can ask questions. You can say something like, what did you mean by pop, 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 pop? Or did you hear me when I said da 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 da? Or did I communicate clearly when I said ba da ba da ba? Yeah, it's always best to use those I words. Did I communicate clearly when I said? And then they can be like, oh, I didn't even hear you say that. Oh, wow. Okay, that's a surprise. Um, or oh boy, I'm thinking of one the other day. Wow, I was super irritated and I was trying to get my taxes done. And I got to the tax office and the the receptionist was just like, I don't know, I guess she was on the phone, which, that's what receptionists do. They are on the phone. But somehow that was irritating to me because I didn't know what to do. And I always have this preemptive like thing going on anyway. So, now here's the part where I get to forgive myself because I think that I preemptively knew that somehow they had lost my appointment time because when she got off the phone, so I was already irritated because I think that I have that premonition thing. Anyway, I was already irritated and she got off the phone. She was like, oh, can I help you? And I was like, well, I have an appointment. Should I just sit down or what should I do? And she was like, oh, what time? What's your name? And she was like, huh, I don't have you on my schedule. And I was just like, there's like steam coming out of my ears. I worked so hard to get those taxes done, and ready for my appointment. And then my appointment is poof, gone. So you see how I'm laughing too. It's like, I didn't need to take a time out because even though I was a little bit irritated, I was like keeping it contained. And so anyway, by the end of it, I was really grateful. She did everything that she could. She found me a different, a tax person that was available and I was able to get my taxes done. Yay. But you know, collect more bees with honey, right? But sometimes it doesn't go that easily, and you're just or you're just like wah, or you're just like and you run away. So if you get into one of those situations where you're just like totally reacting, and you notice that it's a pattern, that's when it's a good idea to reach out and get some help because it may have to do with past life trauma or this life's trauma or sometimes PTSD can be triggered by smells, or, somebody moves the same way as something that happened in a buried memory that you're not even really aware of. So, all of those things are things that I can help with. And that leads me to the special offer that I want to give you. I'm so excited. So, until the very end of this month, which is tomorrow, March 31st, 2023, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Pacific time, which is midnight Eastern time, that's the cutoff for taking advantage of this offer. So get in quick. And the way that you get in quick is you follow the link that's in the description of this video. The link will take you to my schedule. And here's the deal. You can have 2 sessions for the price of 1. 2 sessions for the price of 1. Yay! So exciting. Can you gift that second session? No, it's for you. You get 2 sessions. So 2 sessions for the price of 1. You have to schedule it by 9 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, March 31st, Friday, March 31st. And the way that you schedule it is on my, with that link. It's to my online schedule. So you can either choose, I have 2 options. One of them is a 55-minute healing session. So, we always open the Akashic Records. I always invite in all of your guides, angels, beings of light, helpers, and support team. And I always invite in all of the healing energies, no matter what kind of session you get. But there are 2 main kinds. Each one is 55 minutes. The healing session is really when you're like, oh my gosh, I think I have some, trauma that I'm not aware of, or some past life reasons for this recurring pattern that's going on in my life. Those are healing sessions. If you're just like, I'm struggling with, do I move? Do I change jobs? Do I, what's going on with my kids? They are acting weird, or, things like that. Then that would be an Akashic Records psychic reading. So we can look at, with the Akashic Records psychic reading, we can definitely look at past lives, explore those past lives. A lot of times really interesting stuff comes up that has to do with this lifetime. And you're like, wow, oh, that really makes sense. And for just like questions and stuff, that's more of a talk session. If you want a healing session, I'll be, running that healing energy. We'll do some energy balancing, balance your chakras, balance each layer of your energy field, get your light all lit up, and get you feeling just super, super amazing. The healing session is also a good place to dive into unresolved medical conditions, or because I'm a medical intuitive, I can see inside the body. I'm clairvoyant, so we can dive into that aspect of things too. If you have supplements and you're like, oh, I don't know if they're working for me, even if you've had muscle testing on them, if it still feels like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you can bring those to the session, and I can feel into those and give you really specific reasons why they are either really good or really not working for you. So, yay, that's it. Oh my gosh. Also, I have one other thing. I made an infographic with this basic information for the 5-minute path to peace on it. Just a little like reminders, ticklers for how to do this process. And if you would like that, leave a comment right here in the video saying, I want the infographic, and I will message you with the, I think I have it in a JPEG, and so yeah, I can give you the infographic as an image through Facebook Messenger. No problem. Easy, easy. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was great for you. I totally adore you. I believe in your brilliance because you are an amazing goddess of light, and I adore you. Okay, bye. Have a great day. La, 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 la. Is this not working? How come I can't turn it off?